All right, good evening, everybody. It is Currency Roundtable number 14. It's pretty weird. I can't believe we're at 14.
Mhm.
Two two roundtables into the second year already. This is outstanding. We got to kind of cheat on the 13 and 12, which was a two-parter, but that was good. Loved having those questions. Keep them coming. Some of the ideas that we're getting, we want what you have to offer and you want to know. But tonight we are talking about kind of our mistakes as far as collectors and what we would do differently. And the first question is going to be knowing what you know now, how would you collect differently? And there's going to be a follow-up question. What's your biggest collecting mistake? I mean, is there one story? And there may not be. And then I'm assuming that after we hear some of the answers to the first two questions, they're probably going to be related to price and grade. So just dip into that as the third level. And that's what we're looking at tonight, trying to say, hey, make fun of each other. This is the dumb stuff we did. Um, and in thinking back to it, I'm just going to say, starting collecting in 2000 time frame, it was a different world. It's kind of like having Dennis on, starting collecting in the late
Mm.
60s. Different way to collect, different sources of information, a lot limited. It's a lot harder, but I'm not going to whine about it. So, with that said, we're going to get going. We're going to go counterclockwise. We're going to start out with our friend Ontario 100. Ontario, knowing what you know, how would you collect differently if you started collecting today?
I would specialize. I would have picked one area of currency collecting and stick with it. And let me give you a couple of examples. For example, you might want to think about putting together a $10 note collection. Think about all the different areas you could get into with the large size 10. You silver certificates, gold certificates, Federal Reserve notes, Federal Reserve bank notes, national bank notes, obsoletes, Confederates. Could go a long way. Over a long enough time horizon, you could put a really nice collection together. Uh, if you didn't want to just stick with one denomination, you could go to a series. Like again, example, series 1891 silver certificates with a lifetime to work on it. You could put a really fine set together.
Well, Ontario, I mean, you're the 10 guy. It was funny. Me and Dustin were talking earlier today, and he's like, yeah, I wasn't going to there was a 20, and I wasn't going to give it to Ontario because he's a 10 guy. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, we all certainly know that. When did the 10 start and why?
You mean for me?
Yeah.
Well, I think for what I just said a moment ago, with large $10, you get a little something from every pocket if you think about it. Again, silver certificates, gold certificates. If you
Sorry,
do a five, you don't get gold certificates.
sorry,
So
like usual, I wasn't paying attention to what you
I
said.
know you weren't listening. I know.
Yes, I do understand that. Yeah, especially with the $10 gold.
Yeah.
You know,
And with small size, you can get into like the Hawaii notes and the North Africa notes. There's a lot of different pockets you can get into with the $10 denomination.
all right, we're going to sit with that one. If you've got another one, we're going to do a round, come back around, and we're going to go to Tyler for his first. Knowing what you know now, what would you do differently, Tyler? And welcome back. You've been busy, so it's good to have you
Yeah,
back. Thank you.
yeah, thank you for having me back. So I would say if I were to start collecting today, knowing what I know now, I would have been more patient and I would have bought notes that were more consistent in grade. Um, I was a little too impulsive.
Here's my collection here. Crappy twos. More crappy twos.
At the start. I really enjoyed buying. I think as collectors, we all really enjoy that feeling of filling a hole, buying a note, and just progressing the collection. But it led to me to some spontaneous purchases that really, I have to upgrade them now because they're no longer consistent with the other notes in my collection. So I'm going back and I'm upgrading, and it's kind of like spending more money when the market's a little more expensive. Um, I kind of wish I had stayed a little bit more disciplined and waited for the right note instead of just buying whatever I saw first. Um, I will say, yes, things have changed for me because when I started, I was a young kid, and I
You
didn't
were
have the same.
7. For people that don't know, he was like 7.
Uh,
You
Pretty
weren't, but I
close.
mean, what were you, 13, 14,
Yeah,
14?
I was like 12. Yeah, I was like 12 when I started. So, like, giving myself a little bit of credit, sure. Like, I was buying within my means at the time,
Right.
but it's like some of those super common notes that I bought in VG or Fine. I just kind of wish I'd gone for like a nice, clean, problem-free 15 instead of buying, one with tape or with some serious flaws. Now, when it comes to like the rare notes for me, the more difficult notes, I'm okay with having some problems. Um, like my 1869 50 that I just got recently. It's a 6 and it's got tape, it's got problems, but those notes are difficult. So I'm okay with that one having problems. But I just wish I had been a little more disciplined with some of the more common notes early on.
Yeah, I would have never picked up that 50. That no. I mean, just the chance to get it, right? I
Right.
mean, to buy
Right.
one, I don't care what grade it is. That's
See,
it's interesting. I'm sure a lot of us, I know, I was wondering what your thoughts would be, and I don't think it's probably too different from the rest of our thoughts of whether you're 12 or 42. So,
Yeah.
Dustin, good evening, Mr. Whitty. Good to see you as
good
always.
good evening. Well, so I've put a lot of thought into this one, and I feel like I've got a kind of a unique story with it all because I grew up in the flea market. So I got to see all these notes coming in, all these coins, even all of them coming in, and I wanted to buy it all, and I did buy it all if I could. And you kind of look at that as well. That a lot of that's wasted money because I broke even on a lot of that I bought because I'm having to flip it. I'm a school teacher. School teachers, it's like we make $6 an hour. That's what it feels like. And I was buying too much without, kind of like what Ontario said, and even Tyler alluded to. I was buying stuff that didn't so much interest me. I didn't narrow it down, and I
Yeah.
fancies were my love, and so I that's the road that I ventured down eventually, but it only took me like 10 or 15 years to figure that out.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Well,
And
you
I
were you were into coins too. I mean, Morgans,
yeah,
and I mean, you were diversified as a collector.
yeah, like Morgans and 2 cent pieces were where my loves were. And I think how long it took me to piece together that 2 cent piece collection. I could have done it 2 or 3 years earlier if I had not bought all the Mercury dimes and coal buffalo
Yeah.
nickels and all that
Right.
crap that comes into the flea market all the time.
Right?
Sure.
And at the same time I was buying silver certificates. And no joke, guys, like 2 years ago I had a stack. I may have sent y'all a picture of it. I had a stack of silver certificates. There were 400 of them, and they were just circulated silver certificates that they're $1.75 a piece. And I ended up selling them all for like $1.50, $1.75.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of value there, but I just had a stack of them, and I had no idea. And that kind of where I was. I was more of a hoarder there for a while with stuff.
Yeah. All right. Mr. Stu Plubeck.
Oh, you skipped Dean.
Well, yeah, you're in my counterclockwise. To me, you're lower right hand corner.
Oh, okay. I just thought you were saving the best for last.
That
He
for
is.
sure would have been you.
Let's see. One of the bigger mistakes I made was wanting to get stuff without knowing the full background. One of the bigger mistake purchases I made was the $500 Confederate note. That was one of my early purchases. I bought that at a coin show. It was a coin show I wasn't planning on going to. I didn't even know it was happening. It happened in Vegas. I checked in and they're like, "Hey, there's a coin show going on." Oh, I got to buy something. And I always wanted one of those $500 notes, but I didn't know a whole lot about Confederate currency at the time. So I was always hesitant to buy any Confederate currency because I knew there were so many fakes out there. So I told myself the only way I'd ever buy one of those is if it was graded. And I went to the show, and sure enough, there was one there that was graded. It was graded 15, and the guy was asking way too much for it. And but I bought it because I knew it was real, and I've been kicking myself ever since. If that's like the biggest regret I have, because since I bought it at that show, it means something to me for buying it there. So I don't really want to get rid of it, But that's kind of where I was going to. I was not really in the position to buy that particular note at that particular time because I didn't have any of my info about Confederate currency notes. So when I think about early on mistakes, that's it. Now I can go on eBay and I can spot a replica like that. There's a bunch of different ways you can do that, but I had to learn all that stuff. And yeah, so when I think of early on mistakes, that was it. Trying to buy something, well, I was out of my depth and out of my price range kind of at that particular time.
Well, would you change the direction of your overall collecting?
Would I change the direction?
Yeah, I mean, knowing what you know now. I mean, yeah, that individual note, yep, but knowing what you know now.
When I started collecting, I was really impressed with $3 bills.
Mhm.
And I thought to myself, I'm going to get all the $3 bills I can. And what ends up happening is I end up buying every $3 bill I can that's $20 or less.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there just aren't a lot of those around. But yeah, I never really dove into that because I was always fascinated by the aspect of a $3 bill. As a lot of people, they don't realize that those are real notes. They always think phony as a $3 bill. So I'm not disappointed where my collection has gotten to or the road that I took to get here. But would I have done it differently? Yeah. Yeah, like you guys are saying, I probably should have focused a little more rather than, like Dustin said, buy everything that comes through. I don't have 400, but I've got about 70 or 80 of those silver certificates in a stack over there. And I can probably pull out a stack of $2 red seals that's about 150 of them in there. So I know what you mean. When you see it, you got to buy it.
All right, Mr. Dean, good evening.
Good evening. Well, I think
So,
we kind of said it all, but at least I'll tell you what I wrote down that I haven't heard, which was to buy the books. How important that is to actually, grab those books first before you start jumping into the hobby. Like Dustin said, I wrote down hold the items in your hand, like really familiarize yourself with those things before you just see what you're attracted to. Um, like everybody else said, focus your collection, specialize. I learned that one from Ontario. I like that when he said that in one of his videos. I was like, oh, that's the perfect way of saying it. Specialize. And then the one that I haven't heard, this one to me I really like is buy the things that are connected. So maybe they're connected to you and your life, or maybe things that are connected in history that are important. I'll just show you this note here. I think I've of course not going to do it. So Dan, I'll have you throw that up. This is a note from Prince Edward Island in Canada. Mother born and raised there. I really wanted to get something that was connected to her and connected to my heritage, so I ended up buying that banknote. That kind of stuff is I think important, and it can really help your collection. So if I had all that knowledge now, I don't think I would have screwed up as bad with all my collecting over the years. And do you want me to say that what my biggest mistake was now, or do you want to wait?
we're
We're gonna wait on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably, picking up the email and the phone when I called was probably your biggest mistake.
I want to piggyback on what Dean said.
Go ahead, Dustin.
He mentioned the reference guides and everything. Yeah. And man, I was guilty of that. I figure we all were in some way.
Yeah.
I'm an avid reader, and it's like, oh, what the hell? We have this stuff. We can use this stuff, That was like a light bulb moment for me when I was like 18, 19, 20 years old. I remember we have like Books A Million and, we had Hastings and stuff. They have their hobby section, and I would frequent those. and look for, all the coin books and the paper money books and everything. And that really, really helped me with
Well,
everything and just understanding and getting a grasp on everything.
I want to piggyback on that because part of all of my answers, it involves books, information.
Yeah.
And what's so ironic, is that even today, with all the technology, all the websites, all the information out there, it's books, folks.
Yep.
And my biggest thing, yep, my biggest thing is
Yeah.
don't, spend, Steve, I first heard you say it, that $100 or that $50, maybe when you're dropping $500 on a book, that might be too expensive. But most of the books that you're going to get are going to be $100 or less, and they will pay for themselves over and over again.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
what I find ironic when I started collecting is that the websites, I mean, purchasing and collecting, purchasing online in 2000, people kind of forget. Websites, they they were hard just to have a website. To
Yep.
maintain and operate and host a website was difficult and expensive, I might add, because nobody knew what the hell they were doing. So they'd hire somebody who would probably screw it up. Um,
Correct.
but to have a store on the website that you could actually be able to purchase.
Right.
I'm old enough to remember when, eBay started selling currency and when PayPal came out and it's like, wow, you can put a button and it links to this right on the website. And nobody did it. But I get back to the information on the books. That book information with all the research that I do for my videos, it's still not out there on the website. Yeah, you'll find this, you'll find that. It's still not there. And I will say
Right.
this, nobody cares. They
No,
just
that's true.
they just don't. And I get we're slim currency. So get the books, even if they're outdated. Get the books, get the books, get the books.
Yeah, the
Um,
prices may change, but the information doesn't.
Right.
They're not
Exactly.
printing any more of the 1928 series. So if you want to know how many there are, it's in the book. You want to know how many stars were printed last year? They're in the book. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, that type of information doesn't change. You can always look at auction prices and see what they're selling for, but the info, that's the thing. I
Right.
mean,
yep.
that's priceless.
Ontario started it with, for me personally, what would I do? I would be more focused on what I collect. I was all over the place. And Steve, it's like when you said in Vegas, I'm going to go to the show and I just want to buy something. I got to buy something. No, you don't. You
Yeah.
don't
Right.
have
Yeah.
to buy
No.
anything. And the focus for me was okay, I went down some roads that I'm like, I shouldn't have gone down. I started it and I didn't go down. If I wanted to do a series, what's the 125? Find out where you can stop and does that make you feel good? For example, Treasury Notes. I know the end of the line for me is a $5 US Treasury note. I'll never go to the 10. I will not be able to afford it. I don't know if I want to afford it. Really investigate the whole line before you make an investment on one note, because that's where you start building up. That's when you get a lot of notes that you're like, they're not connected to anything. And you kind of put them aside and it's a pain in the butt to sell off. And that's that's kind of for my deal. And for what I would know now, I would actually, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but because it's just really difficult in the upper Midwest, Minnesota area, to go to coin shows. I should have driven to more coin shows. This market sucks for coin dealers, just going to be really honest, it does. And I got so intimidated and discouraged, by the way, going into coin shops that I'm like, why would I go to a show? It's just going to get
Right.
worse.
Yep.
You know, that was a mistake. That was I would do that differently. Excuse me. I would drive 3, 4, 5 hours a lot more to go attend a show back then, and I think that is still true today. So that's where I'm at right now. All right, I'm gonna go back over to Ontario. Ontario, would you have anything else to add? Knowing what you know, how to
No,
select
no,
differently.
I think we
All right.
covered that.
All right, we're gonna go around the circle just one more time. Tyler?
Yeah, I definitely do. Going off your last point, Dan, just recently, just since last year, I've been going to a bunch more shows again. Um, while I was on active duty, I wasn't really able to go to any shows. So for me, it was mostly heritage and eBay, that kind of thing. But now that, I've been going to more shows and seeing more dealers and establishing a rapport with those dealers, the prices are coming down on their stuff. They know what I'm looking for, and it's just a good experience. Now, I will say one more thing that I wish I would have known when I was beginning. Um, Dealers, especially at shows, what they care about is sheet. They care about sheet price, and they care about comparable sales, like recent sales. Um, I would have bought the green sheet right away, which is like the currency version of the gray sheet. I would have bought that right away. What that tells you is the wholesale price. That's what a dealer is willing to pay you without really, giving your note a second look. They'll be like, okay, that's a 1923 $1 red seal. It's in very fine. It says 125. All right, I'll give you 125. So that way what dealers are paying and kind of what the price is, and then you can use those books like the Paper Money of the United States, which is a solid reference. The rarer the note, the more people who are probably looking for that note, and the smaller your window to buy is. And that means sometimes if you see it and you really want it, you might just have to pay what they're asking. But it has to be fair, it has to be close, you have to be comfortable. But in order to determine, okay, what am I comfortable with? I feel like you need to see what wholesale is, and you have to take a look at comparable prices. And if you're willing to pay more than that, at least now you're educated.
At least you know.
Yeah, green sheet is not a local thing. It's not a show thing. It's national. I concur. The shops around me, when they're talking about purchasing notes, the guys are telling me, yeah, we're paying full green sheet on the thing because we want to get these notes in because we've got buyers for them. So yeah, it's not just Tyler saying this in one particular instance. It's everywhere. So yeah, picking up a green sheet now. I wouldn't pick up a subscription to Green Sheet because they come out once a month, every month, and but I'd pick up one, once a year, once every 2 years. You can get them for what do they run, like 15
18
bucks or
bucks.
something?
Yeah, I
18
just
bucks.
bought one. That's $18, I think.
Yeah.
And
So you
by
don't.
the way, go to graysheet.com, and there you'll find Green Sheet. And by the way, for my 1 year purchase this year, I just did it. I'm like, oh, I'll do the online one. I would never do that again, just FYI.
Yeah.
I've already purchased the paper one. So you live and learn. I'm like, oh, I can get it on my phone, no, um, it's
Yeah.
really not good. Keep it in paper.
Yeah.
But yes, Steve, you're right. Once a year, maybe twice if you're really feeling like you're buying a lot of notes.
I have the 2020 version and the 2023 version.
Yeah.
I don't have a third version yet.
All right, Dustin, anything else on what would you do differently collecting today?
Tyler kind of referenced it a little bit. I think building a network of people, friends, but people within the hobby, because guys, we're on a we're on a lonely island here. With what we do, and besides going to shows, you don't really get to share your collection and do all that stuff every day. But if you have that network of people, which this has only really come around in the last 10 years with social media, at any point I can call or text any of you guys and be like, hey, look what I just got. Or, keep an eye out for this or whatever. I think that's important. And it's something that I wish that I had done earlier. Capability kind of comes into play, but I didn't start building networks till, 6 or 7 years ago, probably. And if it's something that I'd done earlier, who knows what I would have come across.
The
Yeah.
networks. Yeah.
Kind of like a support group.
Yeah. Right.
Exactly.
Dean, anything?
No, I think I said what I. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I mean, the network for me, it's weird. I mean, we're all here because of YouTube. And, I separate YouTube from social media. I know YouTube's social media. I get that. I'm not that old. But it really is different. It's a platform for education to me, first
Right.
and foremost. That's how I used it. It's like a streaming service to me. And I know that there are, I've developed some relationships with subscribers and people who have made great comments, and I will say this, and I'll be, I'm cautious. I'm very, very cautious about that. And I'm assuming you guys, the first time that any of I approached you directly, it's like, all right, I'm just some weird guy, right? I get it. I get it. Let's start with this, but yeah, I wouldn't give it up for anything because it has changed my collecting. Uh, I don't know.
Outlook.
It's made it so much more better for me. It
The
really
lady, the lady at the post office still refers to you as the serial killer. Is that serial killer coming down from Minnesota? So,
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I totally understand the caution thing. Yeah.
Just next time you're not going to know I'm coming down. I'm going to kill you and then go eat at the burger place.
Yeah.
Oh, I
All
don't get
right.
a last meal.
All right, so let's get into some, maybe some fun poke some fun at ourselves. What was your biggest currency, you know, mistake? Your biggest currency collecting mistake, Ontario.
Well, before I get into that, Dan, since you mentioned social media, where else can our listeners hear these podcasts?
Oh, that's good.
Well, it's funny you say that because we do put out the currency roundtable on all the major podcasts distributed. I don't know what to call them. I'm old. I don't care. I'm lucky I figured out how to do that.
Well,
And for the
Spotify, iHeart,
yes,
Amazon
yes,
Music, we're all on there.
we'll put the logos up. But yes, thank you for saying that, Ontario. So again, if you don't want to see us and just listen to us, you're not going to see all the fun eye candy I put up, but um, it'll put you to sleep too. Thank you
Right.
for that, Ontario. I do
You're
forget that.
welcome. You're welcome.
All right.
Yeah.
Any one single thing or collectively your biggest mistake of collecting currency, Ontario? You have one.
Well, as I would have to say, people have buyer's regret all the time. I probably have a lot of seller's regret because I look back on pieces that I've had and I say, well, gee, I wish I'd have kept that. And to build on what the group has been talking about, which is information, um, I had, for example, a large $10 Federal Reserve Star Note. And I thought, well, I want to get one that just looks better. This one was not a high grade, and it had issues. It had splits and all kinds of things. And so I traded it and sold it and ended up buying another one. But what I didn't know was the one I owned was one of like 9.
Oh, geez.
It must have been a mule.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what animal it was, but there was only 9 of them.
Man.
So this is an example of where I did a foolish thing because I did not have information, what we were just talking about, which I would not do now. So I can't stress that enough. That was my biggest mistake, not getting information early enough.
Tyler.
Yeah, I've got a great story for this actually.
All right.
And it's recent. It's pretty recent. So I'm building a type collection and I had an 1880 $1 legal tender that I had bought. It was like a random chance thing off of Instagram. This guy was selling an 1880 $1 a Friedberg 28. So that's a Schofield Gillifan. And it had a missing corner, but it faced up real nice. He wanted like $150 for it. This was back in 2017. I'm like, all right, I'll buy that, even though I already had it. So I kind of kept it as a double for a while. And last year, I decided to sell it. I'm like, I don't need this. I already have one. Just get some extra cash. So I sold it on eBay for like a little over $200. I can't remember exactly how much, but it wasn't a whole lot, more than I paid. So I made money off of it. Well, come to find out, I go to a coin show in New Jersey and I run into this guy and he's talking about how, he's been scoring notes off of eBay. and he brings up this 1880 $1 legal tender that faced up really nice, but it had a missing corner. I'm like, wait, 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 what the heck's going on here? I sold one real recently, just like that. And he's like, yeah, this guy had no idea what he had. Turns out this was the Friedberg 28A, which was just discovered in 2018. So after I had purchased this note, basically the series of 1880 that's usually in the left margin on the reverse is on the top. This wasn't discovered yet at the time I had bought it. So I didn't think to double check or look at anything. And it was my fault for not doing the research. Turns out this guy buys the note, flips it for like $800, and then the dealer that bought the note from him sent it off to grading, and who knows what he got for it? Probably pretty good money because they're selling for a lot. But turns out when I get back home, I beat myself up, real upset about this. I look at my other 1880, which is graded at Friedberg 28. Turns out it's also a 28A.
Oh, wait, you had two of them.
So I had two of them, and I'll send you a picture of it, Dan,
please.
so you can throw that up. But turns out I just got some dumb luck, and it helped me out. But if I had known, if I had done my research, instead of just, I bought it, I thought it was this when I bought it. I didn't look at it again. I should have had that knowledge. I should have known.
Yeah. Yeah. Look at the front and back.
Yep.
It's both. Dustin.
Oh, I can't top that, but I've got a good one.
All right.
So it kind of goes back to me hoarding stuff. I had the opportunity to buy 12 Black Eagles all at once. All right. But the kicker in the whole thing was they were like good 4 to VG10 tops.
Okay.
All right. So it's just a big handful of crap. All right. So the guy that had them, he said, "Man, I'll sell them to you for $70 a piece." Which is not too awful, but they all had pinholes. Some were moldy. So I'm thinking I can flip those. I can ask $100 a piece. I'm going to make $350 here. Here we go. I had those stupid things for a decade, nearly. I could not sell them. I took them to shows. I got them all the way down to like $80 a piece, and I couldn't even give them away. And what I eventually did is I was at a local show here, me and my 10 tables in the area. And there was a guy that saw him, and he said, "What do you want for the whole thing?" He called it a flock. "What do you want for the whole flock?" and I told him this story, and he's like, "Man, I'll give you $75 a note." So that's what I did.
That
I
kind of
made a
runs,
whopping $60.
but that kind of runs into the rarity scarcity. I mean, yeah,
Oh,
Black
sure.
Eagles are valuable. A lot of people want them, but there's a lot of them out there.
There's
So,
so many, and the thing is, there's so many in that VF grade that are affordable that when you have a handful of like VG notes, people are like, "No, I can go pay another $30 and get one that looks a lot better."
or yeah, exactly. I mean, it's
You
not
know,
like Tyler's, torn corner that it just doesn't matter. But yeah, and that's another thing to consider as a new collector. It's like if you do need to fill that hole, and I'll go back to I align with Steve on this. Buy it when it's better to have a hole filled than a hole. Okay,
Yeah.
but be selective. And I was lucky enough to learn that early on just because of budget wise. But it's like be patient. And again, information, knowing the amount that is out there. Oh, okay, this has only got like 2,000 known. That takes books, folks, to know that information. That takes a network. That takes talking to people to find out that number. It's just not out there on the internet. How many are estimated known in surviving. So
Even just experience. I mean,
yeah,
I I had an opportunity to buy a chief note early on, and I'm like, I'll pick it up next week, and I came back, and of course it was gone, and I went 2 years without finding another one in condition or price that was close to that. So I mean, if you just aren't aware of how many are out there like that, it's very easy to fall into that trap.
All right, Dean, is there a stinger in your past, even if it might be a coin?
It's definitely coins. Since I'm so new to currency, I have followed all your guys' advice, and I've gone slow, and I bought very slow. Yeah,
Hold
go
on.
ahead.
Before I'm going to cut you off, and I'm sorry, because I just don't want to preface this. I mean, Dean, this is one of the benefits that if you're coming over from the coin side, that it's
That's what
like
I was gonna say.
you
Yep.
know the pitfalls of that, and you're smart enough. But I'm like, never have the hubris to say I know everything just because I'm going over to currency. It's a
Well,
different
that's
game, and that's what
yeah.
you didn't do. And I would recommend if you're coming over, Dean, you ask the questions, you got involved. So, anyways, I'm
Yep.
sorry to interrupt you, but go ahead.
No, that's right on because I think that's important because yeah, if you're wanting to know, like I said before, buy the book or find people that have a lot of experience in it. So I bought what I've liked with currency, but it's we kind of already said this, but I'm going to say it again because it kind of goes along with my biggest mistake, which is trying to collect it all. Like I literally had an Indian cent collection, I had a Lincoln cent collection, I had the Mercury dimes, the Buffaloes, you name it. I collected every coin. I filled as many holes as I could fill in books and whatever else. And I just thought that that was the way to collect. And then in 2012, when Canada got rid of the Canadian penny, I thought, hey, this is going to be great. I should buy as many pennies as possible. And when I got a little over 35,000 Canadian pennies, my wife said, you know, you think you need to downsize. And I've been downsizing since 2017. And if you'd like, if you bear with me, I will go to my closet and I will get the ammo bags that I still have of pennies that I have gotten rid of over the years. I still have bags of them because I am still getting rid of
No,
Canadian
I don't
pennies
want you
that I
to
have
pull a
bought over the
muscle.
years.
And what you just said bored the tears out of me anyways.
There you go. So don't try to collect it all, like we've all
Well, that's
said.
the answer. That is the
Specialize.
stacks of $2
Yes.
reds, the stacks of silvers. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Um,
Focus. Focus is good.
Yeah, I have not had one single sting. I would say just collectively, I've probably lost $1,000 over
Yeah.
my collecting just by getting too much, going a direction I'm not going that direction, not doing my homework, or going to a show. I'm going to buy that. That might be interesting. And one of the things that it's like to pick up that became a collection, but it wasn't for me, was that shipwreck note that's in the acrylic case. That is a standalone thing. I'm into ships. I'm weird, ocean liners, whatever. But it actually became a collection, and that was the beginning of it for me. But it was bought as a standalone, meaning, Dean, go back to what you were talking about. It meant something to me
Right.
personally.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like I just wish I wish I would have surfed eBay a lot more back in the day. And what do I mean by that? It's like become familiar with the notes that I'm looking for and seeing the different grades. Don't just look at the grades that
Right.
that you can afford. You need to know what the grades three grades under and three grades over. So when you see something, especially if you're getting it ungraded,
Yep.
you know where it is. And that's something that we're not going to address on how to grade and how to price. And for me, it's just like I wish I would have discovered heritage auctions 6, 7, 8 years ago.
Yep.
Because the most valuable tool that I use is recent sales. They go through some volume, and yeah, they're going to find some that only three have sold in the last year, but it gives you some clue where eBay's prices, anything in the $200-300 plus range in eBay, those motherfuckers are asking 500 for. And I will bleed myself out.
I'm going to hope you're going to bleep that out there.
It's gotten so ridiculous, the eBay prices. There are still good values. There are still good values. Like Mark gave me one that I picked up, and I actually didn't get it on eBay. I went direct, but there are still legit sellers out there. That's why you have to surf. You have to crawl through.
And going back to the community piece, because I just did this with you the other day, Dan, with that Canadian note I'm looking at. It just seemed like too good of a deal. So I sent it over to Dan and say, hey, what do you think of these auctions? What do you think of these images? What do you think of the seller? And we got back and forth chatting. And it's important because that it kind of helps you, gauge if there is a pitfall or not.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it really does. All right. I think that's going to wrap up what we've got as far as knowing what you know. How would you collect differently? Biggest collecting mistakes. Does anybody else have anything to add?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things I was thinking of was keeping track of how you find stuff or how you buy stuff. It's a good idea to keep that provenance record. You never know. I mean, my $1 silver or my $1 legal tender, the 1862, the previous owner of that was the mayor of Gurnee, Illinois. I mean, that's just a cool kind of tracking record like that. So if you have information on notes that you've picked up, to be able to keep track of that provenance is always a good thing. With all the strap searching that I do, I wish that I would have kept track of exactly how many notes I've searched, exactly how many I've found, because that would be an interesting record. In the last 5 years, I've searched 350,000 and I've found this many of these and this many, but I never did. I mean, I'm sure I could go back through all my videos and try to figure it out now, but going back 4 years of doing that would be
Just
insane.
watching them the first time is painful enough. I don't know how
I
you
know. I was there. I know. But yeah, keeping track of that kind of stuff would have been interesting. Another thing, though, nobody really mentioned a whole lot about grading and how important it is to learn how to grade. Now, none of us want to sit here and try to teach that because it's not something you can do on video. But what I will say, if you can pick up graded notes, even lesser notes, okay, if you're finding graded notes, probably notes that shouldn't have been graded, now you have an example of what a 20 looks like. Or if you pick up a 65 compared to a 63, now you can actually hold those notes in your hand and see what the differences are. And once you get notes like that, that's how you train your eye into grading. When Dennis was on here, he made a thing about they didn't have grading companies back in the day. You had to be able to grade your stuff. And that kind of piggybacks on me always saying that your notes aren't worth more because they're graded. You simply no longer have the debate on the grade. You still have the debate on the price. So yeah, grading a note doesn't increase the value, but knowing how to grade a note means that you may be able to pick up a note that someone else has undervalued when it's not graded.
And that is experience. 100%. It's time. One thing I did want to say that it's like I wish I would have started right when I got going in my collecting. And this has been reimbursed again through another subscriber, Sneaky Pierre. Thank you for this. You're a little bit overboard, but man, um, it really is. He is his, Stu, I know you do it on paper, you get the abacus out. But seriously, Google Sheets, it's free.
Right.
And it takes, if you are one, you're into your notes a lot, it takes a long time to get that, whether you're writing it down or typing it in, it takes time. The point I'm making is do it, because when you go to sell or have to keep track or where is this or what is that, what'd you pay for it, when did you pay for it, who did you buy it from, the mayor of this owned that, you have a miscellaneous notes, and you can't make enough columns. Don't put in 1928 legal tender, put in 1928, next column's legal tender, next column is denominate, data set
Right.
it out, because then you can search a lot easier going, well, how many twos do I have? How many threes, fives, this, that, click the top. And it's not that hard. It really, if I can figure it out, folks, you guys, you can too. But it really does. It's a lot of heavy lifting to do. So the earlier you do it, the better off you are. And again, I can't emphasize enough, separate all that information. Do not type it all into one line. So
Right.
that's really about it for tonight. I know it's not super exciting, but what I'm coming into my mind hearing, knowing what you collect, how do you collect difference? See, obviously it's information, information, and information, and it comes back to that. And you know, that's patience, I guess. And all of us, Tyler, you said it. We want to buy something. That's why we, this is
Well,
crap. We want to
I
buy.
would add one thing, Dan. You were talking about keeping a list of your notes, which is very important, but I would also say keep a list of your contacts and the sellers you deal with.
Yeah.
Right.
As we meet more and more people, sometimes, or I do, I go, who did I, what was that guy's name I talked to and what did I buy from them? So
That's
that's
actually a really good idea. I've got my pile of business cards, like I think you
well,
do
that's
too.
what I use. But
Yep.
And it's
That's
like
what I do too.
only take so many notes on them, right?
Right.
Yep.
And crayon for Stu, just you can't write that small.
right.
All right.
I have the sharpener.
All right, gentlemen, it has been my pleasure. I appreciate it always. As always, I do appreciate it. Hope things are all going well collecting, and personally, that's it. We will see you for episode number 15, probably in about a month or so.